G'day everyone, Rune here, and this is chapter 5 of my What If Naruto Was a Girl series. In the last chapter, we went over the Land of Waves arc. In this version of events, Naruko was a lot gentler in her handling of Inari, Sakura got to show her abilities, Sasuke was awake when Naruko was overcome by the Kyuubi, and Haku survived. After returning home, Naruko is finally able to tell the last two members of their group about her being a Jinchuriki, to which, thankfully, no one has a bad reaction. The Chunin exams began, and Naruko gave Lee a very scary threat to stay away from her team. The next chapter begins now. Upon entering the testing room, Naruko is immediately tackled in a hug by Ino, who greets her and Sakura in a happy rush, before giving Sasuke a friendly hello. Though she still doesn't detach herself from Naruko. Soon after, they are approached by the other teams, and Naruko hugs Hinata in greeting since they haven't seen each other in a long time. Interestingly enough, Naruko doesn't do that loud and really dumb proclamation of being the winner of the exams. Remember, Sakura and Ino were very big influences in her life, so she knows when to keep her mouth shut and not spout off. She also doesn't like Kabuto very much. The guy came off as really arrogant and like he was trying to make Sakura look stupid, and that really rubbed her the wrong way. When the test is explained, Naruko has a minor internal panic attack for a few minutes until she hears a very faint sound just at the edge of her hearing. Eyes darting around, she sees that no one else seems to hear it. She's about to start ignoring it when it starts to sound familiar. Growing up, Sakura, Ino, and Naruko had come up with their own secret language using sounds that you'd usually hear in a classroom so that they could talk to each other during class. They'd even used it to help Naruko cheat on a few of their tests. Naruko lets a small smile come to her lips as she realizes what's happening. Sakura must have placed a small genjutsu on her that would allow her to hear their secret language without anyone else hearing it. Reaching behind her, she gives her head a light scratch, which is a carefully concealed thumbs up, to let Sakura know that she's heard. The reason I did this is because it acts as a cute little character moment for Sakura and Naruko, and makes sense given the new backstory. Also, it was either something like this, or going with the original events. When Anko shows up and explains the Forest of Death, Naruko doesn't spout off, and is instead already calculating various plans and strategies, which Sasuke points out to Sakura, the two being somewhat impressed. As soon as the test begins, Naruko tells Sakura and Sasuke to create 4 shadow clones each, which they do. She then explains her plan. By using their 4 shadow clones to split up into 4 teams, not only would they be able to cover more ground, but it would also keep the other teams guessing as to which group was the real one. This way, their clones could get the scrolls, or at least locate them, while they got as close to the tower as possible. Even Sasuke has to admit it's a pretty solid plan. They do still need to stop for Naruko to answer the call of nature, though this time, instead of Naruko getting grabbed, she flashes into a kitten me and loses them in the trees, before getting back with the others still as a cat. She then quickly changes back and tells them to get ready, after which they take out the sound ninja no problem. Sasuke, thinking of how the ninja had tried to grab Naruko, and Naruko's own growing skills with transformation jutsus, still makes the suggestion of having a password. When Sasuke tells his idea of a password, Naruko immediately knows that she would never be able to remember that, and that that's Sasuke's point. As she's about to tell him that she doesn't appreciate the assumption that she would be the one to get nabbed, she senses an attack coming at them. Just before she can scream out a warning, they are blasted by a strong gust of wind. When the grass ninja tries to impersonate Naruko, this time it's both Sakura and Sasuke who attack, with Sasuke throwing a kunai, which is dodged, and Sakura throwing a haymaker, which isn't. Over with Naruko, the moment the snake tries to eat her, she turns into a kitten form and uses her small size to duck under roots and through gaps the snake can't follow. Then, mentally noting that she doesn't have time to play tag with a snake, she creates a mass of shadow clones in order to scatter in all directions while she runs off to find her friends. Back with Sakura and Sasuke, Sakura is standing with her foot on the ninja's neck, demanding to know where Naruko is, while Sasuke grabs the scroll from his pocket. Grinning up at the two, he says that that stupid girl is probably snake food by now, before unleashing his killing intent. While the two are paralyzed by fear, the ninja throws Sakura off of him and into Sasuke, knocking them both to the ground and knocking the scroll out of Sasuke's hand. Just as the ninja is about to pick it up again, a figure comes flying out of the trees and right at him, causing him to jump back. Standing there, glaring at the ninja like he's something gross at the bottom of his shoe, was Naruko. Sasuke, I didn't get to say this earlier, but I really don't appreciate the assumption that I would be the one to get grabbed and swapped. Also, your password sucks. With that said, she kicks the scroll at her feet backward towards her friends. Not taking her eyes off the enemy, she tells Sasuke to put the scroll in his pocket. The ninja chuckles at this before asking if they really think they'll be able to get away. While Sasuke and Sakura hesitate, Naruko glares at him. She doesn't care what he thinks because all she knows is one thing. He hurt her friends, and for that he was going to pay. Besides, she highly doubted that he would let them leave anyway. When the ninja confirms this, Naruko immediately throws several smoke bomb kunai before shouting clones, sparking Sakura and Sasuke into action, each of them making a bunch of clones to fan out in groups and confuse their pursuer. Once they're far enough away, they all stop to think about their situation. They needed to think of a plan, and fast. Sakura suggests that they just make a break for the tower since they were already going that way and they now have both scrolls they need. However, both Naruko and Sasuke are concerned over the ninja catching up to them. Naruko thinks about this before asking Sasuke how he feels about cats. Over with Orochimaru, he's been trying to find the troublesome Genin again. That little trick the blonde and her team had done had been rather annoying. He'd already caught 3 decoys and was now moving on to the next group when Anko showed up, and I don't really see anything here being all that different. Back with Team 7, they are making their way through the forest towards the tower, with Sasuke being very sulky over having to turn himself into a kitten. Eventually, they reach the tower and are able to turn back into their normal states. Entering the tower, they meet up with Haruka, who Naruko hugs in delight. Now, would Kabuto still withdraw in this timeline? I'm going to say yes, because he doesn't really have a reason to stay in the fight, and if he does, the numbers become uneven. Also, since Sasuke doesn't have the curse mark in this timeline, there isn't the confrontation between him and Sakura, nor will he have to hold back. As for the matches themselves, I've decided to take a page out of Plus Ultraman's book and put everyone's names in a randomizer to make things more fun. They are as follows: Sasuke Uchiha vs Cuba Inuzuka, Kin Tetsuchi vs Yoroi Akado, Tenten vs Sakura Hirano, Shikamaru Nara vs Shino Aburame, Rock Lee vs Gaara, Tizumi Izurugi vs Dozu Kanuta, Naruko Uzumaki vs Neji Hyuga, Konkuro vs Ino Namanaki, Tamari vs Hinata Hyuga, Zobu Abumi vs Choji Akamichi. Now, looking at this, I think you can already see a problem. 2 of these battles are with 2 of Orochimaru's goods fighting each other, and 2 of them are already in canon. But I think I can still work with this, since one of these fights actually come later in the canon. First, let's get the easy ones out of the way. The 2 fights between those that work for Orochimaru I don't see as being very interesting. Their main goal for being there is to test Sasuke, so while it would be a pain that there would be less people to do that, I don't think they'd care who does it. Just so long as someone does. Honestly, with how the humour of this series goes, I can see them tossing a coin before their matches to determine who will win, and then just putting on a good show for the crowd. So, that's what I did. The results are Yoroi Akito and Mitsumi Tsurugi as the winners. Gaara and Lee goes the same way as in canon. Remember, the first time he even met Team 7 was at the Chunin exams, so there is nothing in this timeline that could have changed this outcome. Now, for Zobu and Choji's match, I don't see Zobu winning here. In the canon, Zobu actually did fight against Choji in the Forest of Death, and his attacks were pretty useless. Especially if the Sound Nin insulted Choji's weight, which I wouldn't be surprised at. So that's a win for Choji. Sasuke vs Cuba is also an easy win. This is a much stronger Sasuke because of his training with the Shadow Clones, and the fact that Naruko is also stronger, creating a feedback loop. Cuba has had no influence that could have caused him to go up in power. So, despite being 2-on-1, Cuba doesn't pull off a win here. Now, onto Tenten vs Sakura, I can see this being a very difficult match. While Tenten is very skilled with weapons and is very strong, Sakura is a lot stronger than her canon counterpart with a focus on defense. Also, it's made very clear that aside from Sasuke, no one thinks much of Team 7, so I can see Tenten underestimating Sakura, which would be a big mistake. In fact, I can see Tenten not using her twin rising dragons at all because she's so confident, and that would be her undoing. While Sakura uses her water shield to block all of Tenten's weapons, she would also be using shadow clones to keep pressure on and getting jutsus to catch her off guard. However, this really depends on if Tenten decides to take Sakura seriously or not, because if she went hard right from the start, the match could end in a tie, with both girls fighting until they collapse. Unstoppable force means immovable object. Comment down below and let me know which of these outcomes you want to see. Next is Naruko vs Neji. Now remember, Naruko and Hinata are actually friends in this timeline, with Hinata being the only one to talk to her at the academy after Sakura and Ino decided to be stupid for about a decade. So I'm going to say that Naruko already knows about Neji and how he treats Hinata, so she would already have a strong desire to slam his face into the ground. But she also knows a little bit about how the Hyuga clan works and how it's negatively affected Hinata, so there would also be a little bit of sympathy for him due to her own struggles. So unlike the canon, Naruko is going into this fight with two goals. 1, kick Neji on his butt for everything he's put Hinata through, and 2, knock some sense into the idiot. Walking out onto the field, Naruko wears a big smile, waving at Neji in greeting. Then, she tells Neji not to hold back, because she most certainly won't. The match starts, and Naruko makes several clones who all draw kunai and shuriken with various tags on them. One clone throws a shuriken that explodes into a cloud of smoke, while another throws a kunai with an explosion tag. Asking the blonde if that's all she's got, Neji begins the rotation, only for Naruko to yell, "Not quite," and launch an air bullet at the exploding kunai, creating a smaller version of the fire bullet bomb, sending Neji back from the shockwave. Seeing the anger in Neji's eyes, Naruko smiles. "Hey Neji! Still think fate is set in stone? Because I hate to break it to ya, but you're dead wrong." Neji, enraged at Naruko's words, tries to get rid of the clones and get to her, only for them to throw more smoke tags, completely rendering his sight useless, since she's using the same chakra trick that Naruto had used in the canon. All around him, Naruko and her clones continue their talk no jutsu. "I'm proof of that thrice over. Number 1! A series of explosion tags come at him from all directions, forcing Neji to dodge lest he fall to the same trick again. "Everyone always says that female shinobi are weaker than males. Well, look who's kicking whose ass! Number 2! Several Naruko clones rush out of the smoke to attack Neji. Much to his shock, they're actually a lot faster and stronger than he'd ever thought possible, forcing him on the back foot and making him use rotation more and more. Clone jutsu was my worst technique. I failed the academy graduation exam 3 times because of it. Wait, actually it would technically be 4. And number 3! Neji is tired. How could this girl make so many clones if it was her weakest ability? From the moment I was born, everyone decided that my fate was to be forever alone, to be forever unwanted. Well, if that's the case, then how can I have so many people that care about me now? I may not have a mum or dad, but I have 2 sisters that mean the world to me. A kooky dumbass uncle, 2 of the best friends I could have ever asked for. And the newest addition? A big brother that believes in me! Sensing something behind him, Neji only has enough time to look up as a foot collides with his head, slamming him into the ground. Dizzy and bleeding, Neji lies there unable to get back up as Naruko stands over him, before crouching down with a soft smile. Fate is what we decide it is, Neji. If you give up before you've even started, you've already lost. My fate is to become Hokage and protect everyone that saw the value of my life, because that's what I've decided, and what I'm working for. What's yours? And that, everyone, is where I'm going to leave the story for now. Join me next time as the preliminaries continue. I'm Rune. See you next chapter.